What's up, guys? Welcome to the first installment of Cryptid Combat. It's an idea I've had for a little bit. I just figured it'd be interesting to see, facing off different cryptids in one-on-one scenarios and see who comes out on top. So for the first episode of this, we're going to do Bigfoot versus Dogman. Bigfoot, probably the most popular cryptid of all time. Most recognized, most well known, and then we have Dogman, a little less known, maybe not so much in the cryptid community, but outside of that community to the average person. So with this first episode, I wanted to face these two off here because I think they have pretty similar statures and some similarities when it comes to reports and encounters. I just figured it would be the best matchup to start off with here. So we're going to compare and contrast a little bit, Bigfoot, Dogman. We're going to take a look at each of them separately, what strengths they bring to the table, what possible weaknesses they bring to the table, how they stack up against each other. And then after that, I have a kind of a short story battle scenario, how I think this would play out. Hope you guys enjoy, and we're going to jump into Bigfoot. Now, the first category being size, and these are, I'm sure there are reports of Bigfoot or a Sasquatch falling outside of these ranges, such as height and weight, and same with Dogman. So I just kind of wanted to generalize here, kind of the not the average, but I do understand there are some outliers and reports out there, but I just kind of went off of the general overall consensus. So, first category for Bigfoot being size, ranging from 7 to 10 feet tall and 600 to 900 pounds, with a massive, muscle-bound, broad-shouldered frame. Bringing a lot to the table. I'm not sure if there's I'll say a land cryptid that would outsize Bigfoot. Now, moving on to strength. Obviously brings immense brute force to the table. Has been reported many times to lift and even throw logs and rocks. And not just little rocks. We're talking pretty sizable boulders. And also known to break trees. And if you just do a quick search on YouTube of Bigfoot tree breaks, you can see what kind of trees they can take down. Pretty impressive. A pretty impressive showing of force, if you will, just based on reports of the size of things that they can heave at you. So there's that. I rank that pretty high in a combat scenario. Can kind of bring I guess you would call it an aerial attack to the table. And now we move to speed and agility. Now, obviously, Bigfoot freakazoid specimen. But compared to Dogman, I have that in parentheses here, probably not as fast. Obviously fast in open spaces, like I said, faster than humans, but less agile and reactive in tighter spaces compared to Dogman. Not to say that Bigfoot wouldn't be agile and reactive in tight spaces. When comparing the two, I think Dogman has the edge here. And some of that has to do with just the size factor. Now, intelligence. Very calculated and evasive. Routinely outsmarts humans and avoids traps. With intelligence, I'm just going to focus on a couple of things here. Routinely outsmarting humans and avoiding traps kind of go together. You think of things like how there really aren't any good pictures of Bigfoot being caught on game cameras or Ring doorbell cameras or iPhone cameras even. Pretty crazy to think about. Not to say that there isn't, but they have this level of intelligence and awareness that they can obviously avoid these things and other human-made traps, such as, I'm sure there are maybe reports or stories out there, but even things as simple as like a bear trap or trying to think of other things. I don't know. The point is that they never really get caught up in our traps. I don't even know if there's really... I remember a long time ago I saw some possible drone footage, not like military grade drone, but you would just think that we would get better footage or samples of Bigfoot by now. So there's clearly a high level of intelligence and awareness with Bigfoot here. I know some people seem to think that they can sense please excuse me if I botch this term, but infrared, maybe the beam that comes off of those motion activated cameras like Ring doorbells and game cameras. So there could be that at play as well. Obviously a lot that we are still yet to understand. And there's also with encounters, people report, if you like make eye contact or somehow catch a Bigfoot's facial expression, a lot of times there's reports of just like they feel like it's more human than animalistic, if that makes sense. So there's like a human intelligence behind those eyes. That's reported a lot of times. So that'll do it for intelligence. I'm going to move on. I'm rambling. Now to natural weapons. There's the clear, massive size and power with Bigfoot. Like I said, with the first category, the size, just incredible size. And my mind instantly jumped to a combat scenario. So what is that size and power? What is it used for? Well, grappling. If Bigfoot can just get a hold of Dogman or anything, God forbid a human, but anything that decides to, for some reason, pick a fight with it, if it can get a handle on you, I think it's game over, just based on the 7 to 10 foot tall frame, along with that 600 to 900 pound, mostly muscle. Pretty scary. So massive size and power that can be used for grappling. To me, that's the number one natural weapon that sticks out. Now moving to endurance and pain tolerance. So I wanted to include this category in a fight scenario because I think of other cryptids that might not do as well in this category. A little more fragile cryptids, I guess you could say. Like, I know there's more supernatural factors you have to think about, but you picture a skinwalker or a wendigo. If you eliminate the supernatural factors, I mean, I don't really think that they have a chance. I don't know. So I wanted to include this one. Bigfoot is incredibly durable with a tank-like constitution and can fight through damage. Incredibly durable is another thing. That's kind of just, it's playing the size game, and it's built like a tank. I mean, you think a human in a fist fight against Bigfoot. Let's say Bigfoot's just standing there, says, "Give me your best shot." You punch it. It's kind of like if you look up, I think it's the mountain from Game of Thrones, Hafthor Bjornsson. I think there's videos out there of like maybe it's Conor McGregor punching him, or I'm sure you can look up too, just like big fitness, people in the fitness space on YouTube. Just look up like pro boxer punches such and such. And just based on the size, or like Eddie Hall, I'm sure he has a video of it. He's like a strongman powerlifter guy. Based on size, so he'll take like a smaller 150-pound pro boxer, and he's like, "Hit me with your best shot." Now, these guys are huge. They're over 6 foot tall, 400 pounds, and they just eat these shots. It's crazy, and that's human versus human. Now, picture the average human male, let's say 6 foot tall, 200 pounds, throwing a punch at Bigfoot. I think Bigfoot's not going to feel it much at all. And yeah, so the ability to fight through damage, I mean, it's kind of like if you watch, is it King Kong or Godzilla? I don't know. I feel like there were some movies that came out not too long ago, but you just see the attacks that humans launch on these creatures. Obviously they're much bigger, but just doesn't really do a thing. So again, factoring into that size game, I guess I'll wrap this category up with that. Again, size kind of just taking the cake here. Huge. It's tough to go against that. And the final category being special abilities. I wanted to keep this one in, or I wanted to put this one in because when cryptids, if we were to think about a face-off, it's not just flesh and blood physical battle, because I think Bigfoot would probably win all the matchups out there. You have to factor in some of these supernatural special abilities, because they could be used in a combat scenario, even against each other. And I think it makes for a much more interesting fight. So with Bigfoot, the first one I put down was mind speak. Reported often, this mind speak, most of the time, I feel like with a lot of reports, it's, to send out warnings to humans like, hey, get out of here type of thing. But that is, I just feel like that, I don't really know if it would be a positive used against a dogman, but I felt the need to keep it in here as it's one of the more popular special abilities reported. The next one being infrasound. Now, this one I've heard encounter stories and reports about this. I'm not too familiar with it myself. Kind of in that mind speak lane where they can use it to keep people at bay, to almost paralyze people, and scare them away. I think there was like one theory out there that they use it to hunt, not humans, but maybe deer, elk, things of that nature. So it has the infrasound, could be a valuable tool against the dogman in a combat scenario. There's also reported cloaking. This one is another one I'm not too familiar with, although I felt the need to keep it in. Whether this is the ability to turn invisible, or it's more so being an expert of camouflage. There we go. Could be very valuable in a combat scenario. And that kind of also ties in with the last one on this list here, but I will get to that after intimidation. There are a lot of reports where I feel like the reports and stories I've told on this channel leading up to this video, a lot of them include these intimidation factors, whether that's a vocalization, using its size to intimidate, rock throwing, stick throwing, tree breaks, tree knocks, growling. It has a lot of things it can use to intimidate. Would that work against a dogman in a combat scenario? Probably not. I'm sure the size would, as it usually does in the animal kingdom. But outside of that, I'm not sure. And the last one I put a question mark with, interdimensional. Is it, it's a big argument in the Bigfoot community today. Is Bigfoot flesh and blood here on this earth, come from Gigantopithecus kind of thing, or is it an interdimensional being on a higher plane of existence, if you will, or a different plane of existence, being very high intelligence, more so of the alien realm? I felt the need to include it because it's just too strong of a theory out there to not brush over. And I also included it on Dogman, which we'll get to next. I felt like it had to be included, kind of like Mind Speak. Like, would this impact a combat scenario, especially if Dogman is interdimensional too? It could. I don't know how they kind of slip in and out of dimensions using portals. I don't know. There's a lot that goes along with that topic. So I'll include it here to have it on the list. But if you guys in the comments want to give your 2 cents on, is Bigfoot flesh and blood? Are they interdimensional? A little bit of both. And also, how do you think it would factor into a combat scenario? Feel free to comment below. So that will do it for Bigfoot. I think I covered everything. So now we're going to move on to Dogman. All right, so Dogman. Size, 6 to 8 feet tall, 300 to 600 pounds, lean, muscular, predator build. So a little bit, on average, a little bit smaller than Bigfoot, still massive in its own right, and still kind of that same really muscle-bound build. Can be very dangerous in a combat scenario. Moving to strength. Strong, but not on Bigfoot's level. Has more speed than raw power. So maybe think of it like a boxer that throws a really good jab and can throw a lot of them and overwhelm you as an opponent, versus the big bruiser who throws the haymakers. That's kind of what comes to mind for me to break it down in more of a human standpoint. Still strong in its own regard, just not on Bigfoot's level. And that, again, is just Bigfoot playing the sheer size game, which is a common theme if you couldn't tell already in this in this duel. So moving to speed and agility. Now this is a big category for Dogman. Definitely a big advantage here. So highly agile, fast on 2 or 4 legs, better mobility than Bigfoot, and I also added in dodging ability. Now this agility and being more mobile than Bigfoot, especially in maybe a tighter battlefield, if you will, probably gives the Dogman the ability to dodge some of these attacks coming from Bigfoot, whether that's Bigfoot throwing rocks or branches, or using its reach advantage to throw punches or try to grab Dogman. I give Dogman the upper hand here. I think it's quicker and can kind of slip through those attacks, which could come back to bite Bigfoot in the ass. So yeah, speed and agility, definitely Dogman's strong suit here in a combat situation. Moving to intelligence. Animal cunning. May use fear, stalking, and ambush as tactics. Fear, maybe not so much against Bigfoot. Stalking and ambush could be very beneficial to use against Bigfoot, especially if Bigfoot is not expecting an attack. For some reason, my mind just jumps to like Dogman jumping out of a tree almost on top of Bigfoot. But that's kind of what I just picture in my head in terms of ambush, which, could get the fight started off on the right foot for Dogman, and that could be what does it. So we're going to move on to natural weapons. Sharp claws, fangs, which could be used for possible bite and slash style attacks. And I feel like this ties in with that dodging ability and using the speed. If Dogman can dodge, almost like being like a counter striker in boxing or mixed martial arts, if Dogman can slip a couple big initial attacks from Bigfoot and get kind of past that line of defense, that could really turn the tides in a fight. The claws, almost like having small knives for claws, could do some serious damage. So I'll leave that there, and we'll move to endurance and pain tolerance. Obviously a high pain threshold, but the smaller frame, and I mean high pain threshold being, again, 6 to 8 feet tall, 300 to 600 pounds, massive when it comes to land cryptids, and also just in terms of picturing your everyday human. Outsizes us by a mile. I know I talked about it a bit with Bigfoot, but human versus Dogman, that's what I mean. It could probably take a beating from a human attack. So still a massively high pain threshold. And that just actually kind of reminds me, right at the time of recording this video, the meme of 100 men versus 1 gorilla is quite popular. Should I do a video on that? So it's kind of funny actually that I'm doing that. I wasn't really an inspiration for this. This is just an idea I had, but it's kind of funny that I'll be recording and uploading this around the same time that the 100 men versus gorilla meme is popular. So just a fun little tidbit there. Fucking, I don't know. So smaller frame than Bigfoot, which will probably mean less endurance when it comes to taking damage. So Bigfoot, built like a tank, bigger than Dogman on average. It's going to be able to go through the rounds and take the hits. Where Dogman, a little smaller, might not be able to last as long when it comes to taking that damage. So that's another big factor to think about. Moving to the last category, special abilities. I'm not as well versed in the Dogman universe as I am with Bigfoot, but I tried my best with these. I tried to find special abilities that were similar and that could match up against Bigfoot's. The first one I have is that Dogman's often reported with a menacing aura, a little less friendly than Bigfoot overall, and I think that could be key in a combat situation, especially since Dogman is not as big as Bigfoot, so it could use a bit of that more just pure aggression and evil to its advantage. And the next one, dread, that sense of dread that it seems to give people many times when reading through reports and encounters. Not to say that that doesn't happen with Bigfoot encounters, but Dogman seems to be not as nice as Bigfoot, so I put this one in because I think it's more so can be associated with Dogman rather than Bigfoot. I think Bigfoot's a little more neutral, like don't bother me, I won't bother you kind of vibe, where Dogman's like I'm here to fuck you up. So moving to glowing eyes, a little bit more just aesthetic. Whether the glowing eyes are an advantage, I'm not sure. It definitely factors into that menacing aura. Would scare the shit out of your everyday human, but Bigfoot, maybe not so much. Extreme stealth. This kind of also could be compared with Bigfoot's cloaking ability. This extreme stealth helps it to be the ultimate predator and be an amazing hunter. Like I said, I feel like that kind of ties into, I feel like Dogman would have to start the fight to have any kind of advantage. So it would have to use this stealth and use it to its advantage to kind of launch an ambush style attack on Bigfoot to deal that first initial blow. I think that that's huge. I put Mind Speak because there are reports out there of Dogman using Mind Speak, but the reports, not all of them, but reports I have read and listened to, it uses this Mind Speak to lure its victims out of their house, out of their car, tent, whatever, safe dwelling. So I think it's almost, you could say it uses its Mind Speak more so to be that master manipulator to get its prey out in more of open territory where it can do the unthinkable. Would it work on Bigfoot? I don't think so, but drop a comment if you think that it could. And lastly, another one, interdimensional with the question mark. I've heard reports of it being in that interdimensional being category along with Bigfoot. I, for whatever reason, think that Dogman is more flesh and blood and Bigfoot is more interdimensional. That's just my opinion. But I put it for both because I want to hear what you guys think. Do you think that this would be a big factor in a combat situation between Bigfoot and Dogman, or do you think it wouldn't really play in at all because they're in the heat of battle? I don't know. So that's what I got for Dogman. Both incredible specimens in their own right. And now we will get into the battle scenario. Hope you guys enjoy. It's late evening. Fog clings low to the forest floor, and the distant sound of a river echoes between the trees. The moon is half hidden behind drifting clouds. The air is heavy, quiet, and charged with unease. Bigfoot moves silently. Despite his size, he's been tracking something unfamiliar. Bark has been shredded on several trees. There are claw marks, deep, deliberate. He senses something's wrong. The birds are silent. No insects. The forest is holding its breath. Then it happens. A low growl, almost a whisper, slithers through the fog. Red, glowing eyes flicker between the trees. Dogman steps into view, upright, lean, and still as a statue. His lips curl back over dagger-like teeth. He doesn't roar, he just stares, letting pure dread radiate out like a weapon. Bigfoot feels it, an instinctive chill in the spine, but he doesn't back down. Instead, he lets out a deep, guttural, infrasound pulse, a vibrational wave that ripples through the trees. A challenge. Dogman charges, fast, luring between trees, claws slashing as he goes for the legs. Bigfoot is slower. but he's not caught off guard. He pivots and swings a massive arm, catching Dogman mid-lunge and slamming him into a tree with a sickening crack. But Dogman is already up, bleeding, grinning. He darts in again, this time aiming for the throat. Claws rake across Bigfoot's chest, drawing blood. Dogman tries to retreat and regroup. He's faster, but Bigfoot has read his rhythm. With a roar, Bigfoot lifts a fallen tree limb and hurls it like a spear, pinning Dogman's leg and sending him tumbling. Bigfoot advances, looming. As he closes in, Mind Speak activates. A wave of pressure enters Dogman's mind. Disorienting, confusing. For a moment, the predator hesitates. But Dogman shakes it off, eyes blazing with primal fury. He lunges up the side of a boulder, springs off, and lands on Bigfoot's back, sinking fangs into the shoulder. Bigfoot roars in agony but grabs Dogman by the arm and slams him into the ground. The earth shakes. He raises a tree trunk overhead for the finishing blow. Dogman rolls away, trailing blood, then vanishes into the fog, defeated but alive. Dogman's speed and lethality were nearly enough, but Bigfoot's strength, resilience, and special abilities allowed him to survive the ambush and turn the tide. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed that little battle scenario. Not too long, but just enough to kind of illustrate what I think would happen and how it would play out. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed not only the comparing and contrasting of Bigfoot and Dogman's abilities when it comes to combat, but also the battle scenario. I'd love to hear what you think down below in the comments. Let me know if you think maybe Dogman should have come out on top, or if Bigfoot maybe should have won by a wider margin. It's a really interesting, fascinating topic, putting cryptids up against each other to do battle. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below on what you think should have happened. If you have something to add to the scenario, or any recommendations for another cryptid combat. I have Skinwalker vs. Wendigo in mind, but let me know if anything jumps out to you. The cryptid world is wild and crazy, so I'm open to any ideas that you guys have. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a good one, and I will see you in the next one.